King Zephyros stood alone in the crystal chamber, his tall form casting rainbow shadows on the walls. His body was made of living crystal that usually glowed with bright blue light. But today, the light was dim and sad. His daughter was gone. The memorial stone in front of him sparkled in the darkness. Princess Lyrale's image was carved into its surface, showing her beautiful crystal face and kind eyes. 6 months had passed since her ship was destroyed, but the pain felt fresh every day. "My lord," came a voice behind him. General Thymus entered the chamber, his own crystal body glowing with respectful orange light. "The council is waiting for you." Zephyros did not turn around. "Tell them I will not choose a new heir today." "But sir, the people need hope. They need to know the kingdom will continue." The king's light flashed angry red for a moment. "My daughter is not so easily replaced." Thymus stepped closer. His voice was gentle. "She would not want you to suffer like this. The princess loved her people. She would want you to think of them." Zephyros finally turned. His crystal face showed deep lines of pain. She was trying to help people when she died. The Kethmori raiders attacked her ship in the human frontier. She was bringing medicine to the outer colonies. "The search teams found nothing, my lord. No survivors. I know." The king's voice was quiet. "I know because I sent the best ships we had. But those monsters took her from me." The human frontier was a dangerous place. It was far from the safe inner worlds where civilized species lived. Wild humans had settled there in their crude metal ships. Most species thought humans were too primitive to matter. They had no crystal technology, no harmony weapons, no energy shields, just metal and fire and stubborn hearts. The humans offered to help with the search, Thymus said carefully. Their representative came 3 times. Zephyros made a sound of disgust. "What could those savages do that our best ships could not? They barely have space travel. Their weapons are projectiles and explosions. Crude things. Perhaps, but they know that region of space. They live there. They live there because no civilized race wants it." The king walked to the great window. Outside, the crystal city of Nethys Prime floated in the clouds of the gas giant below. Millions of Vorthik lived in the beautiful towers that sang with harmonic energy. "My daughter died trying to help refugees." Humans refugees, fleeing from Kethmori attacks. The general said nothing. He knew the king blamed himself. "I should have sent warships with her," Zephyros continued. "But she said it was a mercy mission. She said showing weapons would make the humans afraid. She wanted to prove that the Galactic Council cared about all beings, even primitive ones. She was wise and kind. She was naive." The king's crystal body pulsed with grief. She thought goodness could protect her. But the galaxy is full of monsters who eat goodness and spit out bones. Through the window, they could see other crystal spires reaching into the purple sky. Each one hummed with the voices of the people. Today, their song was sad. When their king grieved, the whole city felt it through the harmonic network that connected all Vorthik minds. "The Kethmori grow stronger," Thymus said. "Our scouts report more raids every week. They have new bioships. Bigger ones. The council speaks of launching a major strike against them." "With what?" Zephyros asked bitterly. "We have tried for 300 years to stop them. Every time we destroy their ships, they grow back stronger. Every time we burn their worlds, they adapt. The council's armies are like waves breaking against a mountain. The Kethmori were living nightmares. Their ships were grown, not built. When damaged, they healed themselves. Their warriors were bred for war, with acid blood and regenerating limbs. They took slaves from every species and used them to feed their growing fleets. Perhaps if we united all the species," Thymus began. "We have tried. The Zephyrians will not share their quantum weapons. The Melody claim their battle songs are too sacred for outsiders to hear. The stone people of Rokat move too slowly for real war. Everyone has excuses. The king moved away from the window. The memorial stone drew him back like gravity. His daughter's face looked so real in the crystal. Sometimes he thought he could hear her voice in the harmonic winds that blew through the city. "Do you know what she said in her last message?" Zephyros asked. "She said the humans were braver than she expected. She said they fought the Kethmori with nothing but metal and fire, but they never gave up. Even when they lost, they kept fighting. Foolish courage," Thymus said. "Wisdom knows when to retreat. Is it foolish? Or is it something we have forgotten?" The king placed his crystal hand on a memorial stone. "We Vorthic sing our enemies to sleep with harmonic weapons. The Zephyrians erase them with quantum fire. The council species have all learned to kill from a distance. But humans get close. They fight with their hands if they must. Primitive methods. Perhaps. But when did we last hear of humans taking slaves? When did they last raid innocent colonies? The council dismisses them, but maybe we are wrong." Thymus looked confused. "My lord, you cannot mean to ally with humans. They are not even members of the Galactic Council. They have no technology we need." Zephyros was quiet for a long moment. His light faded to almost nothing. "They have something else. Something my daughter saw before she died. I should have listened to her." "What do you mean?" "She wanted to offer the humans a place in the council. She said they were different from other primitive species. I told her to focus on more important matters." His voice broke. "Now she is dead, and they were the only ones who offered to help find her." The crystal chamber fell silent, except for the distant songs of the city. Both of them stood before the memorial, thinking of the princess who had wanted to help everyone, even those the galaxy had forgotten. "Send word to the human frontier," the king said finally. Tell them. King Zephyros thanks them for their offer. Tell them it is too late now." As Thymus left to deliver the message, Zephyros remained alone with his grief and his regrets. He did not know that somewhere in the darkness between stars, his daughter was still alive, learning lessons that would change everything. Princess Lorelei opened her eyes slowly. Everything hurt. Her crystal body felt heavy and dull, like all the light had been drained from it. The air smelled wrong, wet and organic, like something rotting. She was in a cage. The bars were made of some kind of living bone that pulsed with dark veins. Through the dim red light, she could see she was inside a ship, but not like any ship she knew. The walls were curved and ribbed, like the inside of some giant creature's belly, a Kethmori ship. She was still alive. "You're awake," said a voice from across the narrow corridor. "Good. I was starting to worry." Lorelei turned her head and saw another cage facing hers. Inside sat a human male. He looked to be in his 30s, with brown hair and gray eyes. His clothes were torn and dirty. Scars marked his arms and face, but he sat calmly, watching her with interest. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice came out weak and scratchy. "Marcus Chun, former Earth Colonial Marines, currently a freelancer." He leaned forward. "You're Princess Lorelei of the Vorthek. I recognize you from the news feeds. How do you know Galactic Standard?" Most humans she had met could barely speak their own language properly. Part of the job. "I work in places where knowing languages keeps you alive." Marcus gestured around them. "Like here." Lorelei tried to sit up, but her body would not obey properly. "What have they done to me?" "Neural suppressors. Those collar things around your neck. They block your harmonic abilities and keep you weak. I've seen them used on other species." She reached up and felt the cold metal band. It hummed with ugly energy that made her crystal skin crawl. "How long have I been here?" 3 days since they brought you in. You've been unconscious most of that time." Marcus's voice was steady, like he was discussing the weather. "I've been here 2 weeks." 2 weeks? Lorelei looked at him more carefully. He should have been broken by now. Every species knew that capture by the Kethmori meant slow death or worse. But this human seemed almost relaxed. They grabbed me during a rescue mission that went bad. I was trying to get some colonist kids back from a raiding party. Marcus shrugged. Happens sometimes. You tried to rescue children from the Kethmori? Alone? Not alone? Had a team. Good people. They got the kids out while I kept the bugs busy. He said it like it was normal. Literally stared at him. You let yourself be captured so others could escape. Someone had to. Better me than kids. This was not how other species behaved. The Vorthik would have tried to use harmonic weapons to defeat the enemy directly. The Zephyrians would have called for backup and waited. Most races would have retreated to fight another day. But this human had chosen capture over leaving innocents behind. Why are they keeping us alive? She asked. Marcus's expression darkened slightly. You're a trophy. Princes of a major species. They'll parade you in front of their broodlord to show how strong they are. Might even take you to the High Swarm as a gift. And you? Entertainment. They like to watch different species break in different ways. They've been studying how humans handle stress. His smile was cold. They're getting disappointed. Lirale understood. The Kethmori were famous for their psychological torture. They broke their prisoners' minds before using them as slaves or food. How are you resisting? Trade secret. Marcus stood up in his cage and stretched. Even in captivity, he moved like a fighter. But I can tell you this. They expect you to either go crazy or give up. If you do neither, it confuses them. My father will come for me, Lirale said, though her voice lacked conviction. Maybe, but Vorthek ships don't do well in the deep dark where we're heading. Too much interference with your harmonic systems. Marcus sat back down. How much do you know about Kethmori biology? They are parasites. They take what they need from other species. Their ships heal themselves. Their warriors regenerate. She recited the facts like a lesson. That's what everyone knows. But I've been watching, learning. Marcus's eyes sharpened. Want to know what I figured out? Despite her fear, Lirale found herself curious. Tell me. They're not as invincible as they want everyone to think. The regeneration? It has limits. The bioships? They have weak points. The psychological warfare? It only works if you play their game. Impossible. The Council has fought them for 3 centuries. If there were weaknesses, the Council fights them like they're fighting other civilized species. Rules of engagement. Honor codes. Predictable tactics. Marcus leaned closer to the bars. Humans don't fight fair. We fight to win. Before Lirale could respond, the wall at the end of the corridor began to iris open. A Kethmori warrior stepped through. It stood 8 feet tall on 6 jointed legs. Its upper body was vaguely humanoid, but covered in chitinous plates. 4 arms ended in clawed hands, and its face was a nightmare of compound eyes and mandibles. The creature looked at both prisoners with alien interest. When it spoke, the words came out in a buzzing, clicking language that made Lirale's skin crawl. It wants to know if we're ready to play, Marcus translated calmly. You understand them? Like I said, languages keep you alive. The Kethmori warrior clicked again, more insistently. It gestured with one of its arms toward Lirale. It's asking about your harmonic abilities. How they work. What frequencies cause you pain? Marcus's voice stayed level. I suggest you don't answer. Lirale said nothing. The warrior moved closer to her cage, its compound eyes reflecting the red light. It reached through the bars with one clawed hand, but she pressed herself against the far side. Marcus said something in the clicking language. The warrior turned to look at him, mandibles spreading wide in what might have been surprise. What did you tell it? Lirale whispered. I told it that humans find Kethmori biology fascinating. I asked if it would like to compare regeneration rates. Marcus grinned, but there was no humor in his eyes. It's confused now. Prey isn't supposed to show scientific interest in predators. The warrior clicked angrily and left through the iris door. Marcus watched it go with satisfaction. Why did you do that? Because now it's thinking about what I said instead of what it wants to do to you. Confusion is better than focused malice. Marcus settled back in his cage. Besides, I really am curious about their biology. Know your enemy, as we say. Lirelei looked at this strange human who faced a certain death with curiosity instead of fear. My people's first impression of humans was that you were too primitive to matter. We get that a lot. I am beginning to think my people were wrong. Marcus smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Princess, if we get out of this alive, I'll be happy to show you just how wrong. For the first time since waking up in the cage, Lirelei felt something other than despair. It was small and fragile, but it was their hope. The escape began 3 days later, when Marcus did something that shocked even the Kethmori guards. He started fighting back during feeding time. The Kethmori had brought food, if the gray paste they served could be called food. Most prisoners either ate it or starved. Marcus ate it, waited 30 minutes, then began systematically making himself sick. What are you doing? Lirelei whispered as Marcus retched violently. Testing their healing abilities, Marcus gasped between spasms. Watch the guards. 2 Kethmori. Warriors rushed to his cage, clicking with agitation. They opened the cell and dragged him out, one holding each arm. Marcus went limp, pretending to be sicker than he was as they carried him toward the medical bay. Marcus suddenly twisted and broke free. He was not trying to escape. That would be impossible. Instead, he grabbed a piece of equipment from the wall and smashed it against the floor. The guards caught him immediately and threw him back in his cage. But Lirelei saw what he had really done. He had memorized the layout of the corridor. He had tested how fast the guards could move. He had learned how they reacted to unexpected actions. You are gathering intelligence, she realized. Marcus wiped blood from his mouth and smiled. Every mission starts with recon. Over the next 2 days, Marcus repeated this process. He would cause some small problem, get dragged out, and learn something new each time. The guards began to think he was going sane from captivity. That was exactly what Marcus wanted them to think. Humans do not give up easily, Lirelei observed. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten, Marcus replied. It drives other species crazy. On the 5th night, Marcus made his real move. He had been working on loosening one of the bone bars of his cage whenever the guards were not watching. The living bone was strong but had growth patterns he could exploit. When the bar finally snapped, Marcus squeezed through the gap. He moved quickly to Lirelei's cage and began working on her neural suppressor collar. I cannot remove it without the proper tools, he whispered. Then we get the tools. Marcus had studied the collar during their conversations. It was biomechanical, grown by the Kethmori rather than built. These things need constant feeding from the ship's nervous system. If we disrupt that, he led her down the corridor toward the ship's central core. Marcus had learned the patrol routes during his fake sickness episodes. They avoided 3 guard posts and reached a chamber where thick veins of neural tissue covered the walls. This is where the ship thinks, Marcus explained. If I cut the right connections, your collar should shut down. How do you know which ones to cut? Marcus pulled out a sharp piece of metal he had saved from his equipment breaking incidents. I don't, but I know how to find out. What happened next amazed Lirelei. Instead of cutting randomly, Marcus began testing the neural veins. He would nick one slightly and watch how the ship responded. Lights flickered. The walls pulsed. Each time, Marcus would observe carefully and move to a different spot. You are mapping the ship's nervous system, she breathed. Bioships have to follow biological rules. Find the main nerve cluster and you can cause a cascade failure. Marcus found what he was looking for and made a precise cut. Liralay's collar went dead instantly. Power flooded back into her crystal body, and she nearly cried with relief. But there was no time for celebration. Alarms began howling throughout the ship. Red lights pulsed as the bioship realized it had intruders loose. Now what? Liralay asked. Now we find the others and get everyone out. Marcus started moving deeper into the ship. Others? Did you think we were the only prisoners? The Kethmori have been collecting people for weeks. They found the main holding area 20 minutes later. It was a nightmare. Dozens of cages held creatures from across the galaxy. Most were children, young beings from races Liralay recognized, and some she did not. All wore neural collars. All looked broken and afraid. We cannot free them all, Liralay said, though her heart ached to see such suffering. There are too many guards. We should escape while we can and get help. Marcus looked at her like she had suggested something impossible. Leave kids behind? Not happening. Be practical. We cannot, princess, with respect. Practical is not always right. Marcus was already moving toward the control station that managed the collars. Besides, I have an idea. The Kethmori guards arrived just as Marcus reached the controls. There were 6 of them, moving fast on their spider-like legs. Their mandibles clicked with anger as they saw the escaped prisoners. Surrender and your deaths will be quick. One of them buzzed in galactic standard. Marcus grinned. Counter offer. You surrender, and I won't crash your ship into the nearest star. The guards thought this was funny until Marcus's hands found the bioship's nerve interface. When he pressed his palms against the living controls, his human bioelectricity began interfering with the ship's systems. The ship screamed. It was not a sound exactly, but a harmonic wail that came through the walls themselves. The bioship had never felt anything like human neural patterns before. Marcus's thoughts were alien to it, confusing and painful. Humans have electrical patterns that bioships cannot read, Marcus explained as the ship bucked and twisted around them. We're like static in their nervous system. While the guards stumbled around in confusion, Liralay used her freed harmonic abilities to shatter the control station. All the neural collars in the holding area went dead at once. Chaos followed. Dozens of children from different species poured out of their cages. Some tried to hide. Others looked around in confusion. A few began to fight. This way, Marcus shouted over the noise. He led them toward the hangar bay he had memorized during his intelligence gathering. Stay together. Move fast. The Kethmori ship was convulsing around them now. Marcus's interference with its nervous system was causing cascade failures throughout its biological structure. Walls spasmed. The gravity field fluctuated. Emergency. Systems that had never been needed before began to activate. They reached the hangar bay just as a group of Kethmori warriors caught up with them. The aliens opened fire with bioweapons that shot acid and toxins. This was where Liralay proved that a Vorthic princess was more than just royalty. Harmonic abilities, freed from the suppressor, rang out in complex patterns that turned the hangar bay into a weapon. The metal sang. The air itself vibrated. The Kethmori warriors clutched their heads as their own sensory organs turned against them. Can you pilot one of their scout ships? Marcus asked as they ran. I can learn, Liralay replied. Good enough. Getting everyone onto the small scout vessel was like herding frightened animals. The children came from species that had never worked together before. Some breathed different atmospheres. Others could not understand each other's languages. Marcus moved among them like a natural leader, using hand gestures and simple words to guide them. He did not try to force them or shout orders. Instead, he made each child feel safe, one at a time, until they all wanted to follow him. How do you do that? Liralay asked as they prepared to launch. Kids are kids, no matter what species they are. You treat them with respect, and they trust you. Marcus strapped himself into the co-pilot seat, Ready to fly this thing? I hope so. The scout ship launched just as the main bioship began to tear itself apart. Marcus's neural interference had caused a complete cascade failure in its biological systems. Behind them, the massive vessel twisted and screamed as its own nervous system destroyed it. Remind me never to make humans angry, Lorelei muttered as she struggled with the alien controls. Marcus laughed. Princess, you have not seen anything yet. Wait until you meet the rest of us. As they fled through space toward Vorthic territory, Lorelei realized that everything she thought she knew about humans was wrong. They were not primitive. They were not weak. They were something else entirely. They were dangerous in ways that the galaxy had never imagined. The alarm screaming through the crystal palace of Nethys Prime could mean only one thing: Kethmori ships approaching the home world. King Zephyros rushed to the command center, his crystal body blazing with combat energy. Around him, generals and advisors moved with controlled panic. The defensive fleet was already launching from their hidden bays in the gas giant's upper atmosphere. How many ships? The king demanded. Just one, my lord, General Thymus replied. His voice was confused. A small scout vessel, but it is definitely Kethmori bioship design. One ship dares to attack our home? Zephyros was insulted and terrified at the same time. Either this was the beginning of a massive assault, or the Kethmori had some new weapon that made a single ship confident of victory. Sir, the communications officer interrupted, his crystal form flickering with excitement. We are receiving a transmission from the scout ship. The signal is Princess Lorelei's harmonic signature. The king's body went completely still. For a moment, every crystal in the command center dimmed to almost nothing. Then Zephyros blazed so bright that the others had to shield their optical sensors. Impossible, he whispered. Sir, the signature is confirmed. It is definitely the princess. She's requesting permission to dock. Granted immediately. And get medical teams to the docking bay. The king's mind raced. How could his daughter be on a Kethmori ship? Was this some kind of trick? A trap? My lord, Thymus said carefully, should we not be cautious? This could be. I do not care if it is a trap big enough to swallow the galaxy, Zephyros snapped. If there is even the smallest chance my daughter is alive, I will take any risk. The king reached the docking bay before the scout ship had even finished its landing sequence. Medical teams waited with harmonic healing equipment. Security forces stood ready but tried to stay out of sight. Zephyros paced back and forth, his crystal body shifting through every color in the spectrum. The ship's biological airlock finally opened with a wet, organic sound. Princess Lorelei stepped out first, and the king nearly collapsed with relief. She was alive. Hurt, clearly exhausted, but alive and walking. Then she turned and helped someone else out of the ship. A human male, scarred and dirty but moving with confident purpose. Behind them came a stream of children, dozens of young beings from species across the galaxy. All of them looked frightened but unharmed. Father, Lorelei said simply as she approached. Her voice was tired but strong. Zephyros swept her into his arms, his crystal body ringing with harmonious joy. Around them, the rescue children clustered together, watching the emotional reunion with wide eyes. How? The king asked when he could finally speak. We searched everywhere. We found your ship destroyed. No survivors. We were taken prisoner. This is Marcus Chun. Lorelei gestured to the human, who stepped forward with respectful but not submissive posture. He saved us all. The king looked at the human with new eyes. Marcus was not impressive by Vorthak standards, small, soft-skinned, with no natural weapons or armor. But there was something in his gray eyes that reminded Zephyros of veteran warriors. Your Majesty, Marcus said in careful but correct galactic standard. I am honored to meet you. You saved my daughter's life, the king replied. That makes you welcome in any place I rule. Actually, sir, we saved each other. The princess is tougher than she looks. Over the next hour, as medical teams checked the rescued children and arranged for their return to their families, Lirelei and Marcus told their story. The king listened with growing amazement as they described the escape from the bioship. You interfered with their nervous system using your own bioelectricity? Zephyros asked Marcus. No species has ever successfully disrupted Kethmori biotechnology. Maybe because no species thinks like humans do, Marcus replied. We do not see their ships as invincible. We see them as biological systems with biological weaknesses. But how did you know what to attack? Marcus exchanged a look with Lirelei. I watched. I learned. I experimented. When you are a prisoner, you have time to study your captors. While other species would spend that time in despair or planning honorable deaths, Lirelei added, humans spend it gathering intelligence. The king was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the palace hummed with excited energy as news of the princess's return spread through the harmonic network. But Zephyros was thinking about implications that went far beyond his personal joy. You said there were other children, prisoners from multiple species. Dozens, Marcus confirmed. The Kethmori have been raiding throughout this sector for months, taking young ones for slaves and worse. And you freed them all. Could not leave them behind, sir. Not an option. Again, that simple statement that revealed so much about how humans thought. Zephyros had seen generals abandon entire armies to save strategic positions. But this human had risked everything for children he had never met. Marcus, the king said slowly, my daughter tells me you were hired to rescue human children from previous raids. Yes, sir. Freelance work. The families could not afford military contractors, but they scraped together enough to hire me. And when your mission failed and you were captured? The mission did not fail. My team got the kids out while I kept the Kethmori busy. That was always the plan. The king's crystal body flickered with something like awe. You allowed yourself to be captured so others could escape. Someone had to? I was the logical choice. Logical. Zephyros repeated the word like it was foreign. You sacrifice yourself for strangers and call it logical. Marcus shrugged. If you can save 10 lives by risking one, the math is pretty clear. But it was not just about mathematics, and the king knew it. This human had chosen to value other lives above his own, not because duty demanded it, but because it was who he was. And he had done it without expecting reward or recognition. Tell me about these raids, the king said. How long have they been happening? 6 months, maybe more. The Kethmori have been hitting outer colonies hard. Places too far from the inner worlds for anyone to care about. There was no accusation in Marcus's voice. But the king felt the weight of it anyway. The Galactic Council did not know. Respectfully, sir, the council did not want to know. These were mostly human settlements and refugee camps. Not exactly a priority. Lirelei touched her father's arm gently. That is why I was there. I was trying to bring medical supplies to the refugees. I thought if the council saw that we cared about all beings, even humans, it might encourage other species to help. Instead, you flew into a trap. No, Marcus said firmly. She flew into a situation where help was needed. The trap was not her fault. It was intelligence failure by everyone who should have been watching the Kethmori movements. The king studied this human who dared to criticize the galaxy's intelligence services to their faces. You speak as if you know something about their operations. I know they are not random raiders. This was organized, planned. Someone is coordinating attacks across multiple systems. Marcus's expression darkened. And someone is collecting specific types of prisoners for specific purposes. What do you mean? The children we rescued. They were not just any children. Each one had unusual abilities or came from important families. The Kethmori are not just taking slaves. They are gathering resources for something bigger. The implications hit the king like cold water. You think they are preparing for a major assault. I think they have been preparing for months. And everyone has been too busy with politics to notice. Zephyros looked at his daughter, alive and safe beside him. Then he looked at Marcus, this scarred human who saw patterns that the galaxy's best intelligence services had missed. What would you do? The king asked. If you were responsible for stopping them? Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking. I would stop treating them like a force of nature and start treating them like an enemy that can be defeated. I would gather intelligence on their real capabilities, not just their propaganda. And I would find allies who are willing to fight instead of just defend. You believe humans would fight? Sir, humans have been fighting the Kethmori for months with nothing but metal ships and projectile weapons. We have been losing, but we have been learning. Marcus's eyes were steel. Give us real weapons and real support, and we will show you what we can do. For the first time in months, King Zephyros felt something other than grief and fear. He felt hope, and he felt the beginning of a plan that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. His daughter was home. But more than that, she had brought him a glimpse of what the galaxy could become if it stopped underestimating the species that thought were primitive. The humans were not primitive. They were something much more dangerous. They were effective. 3 weeks after his daughter's return, King Zephyros stood before the Galactic Council for the first time in over a year. The Great Chamber on the neutral world of Convergence held representatives from 47 species, each sitting in their designated areas. According to ancient protocols, the king's proposal had been met with everything from polite interest to outright laughter. Now he had to convince them that their entire approach to the Kethmori threat was wrong. Honored delegates, Zephyros began, his crystal body glowing with formal blue light. For 3 centuries, we have treated the Kethmori as a natural disaster. We build defenses. We evacuate threatened areas. We mourn our losses and call it inevitable. The Zephyrian ambassador, a being of living energy, pulsed with impatience. We have heard this before, King Zephyros. Do you have new weapons to offer? New technology? Or do you simply wish to repeat old complaints? I offer something better. I offer new thinking. From humans? The Melody representative's song turned discordant with disbelief. A species that barely has quantum technology? A species that has been fighting the Kethmori longer and more successfully than any of us realized. The chamber filled with confused murmurs. Several ambassadors activated translation devices, certain they had misheard. Please clarify, said the stone creature from Rokad, its voice grinding like mountains. Humans lack the military capacity to threaten the Kethmori. Zephyros gestured to the viewing screen behind him. 3 weeks ago, my daughter was presumed dead, killed by Kethmori raiders. Yesterday, she stood in this very chamber. Between those 2 events, she learned something that will change how we understand this war. The screen showed tactical displays that Marcus had helped prepare. Ship movements, attack patterns, resource allocation charts that painted a picture very different from what the Council believed. The Kethmori have been conducting systematic raids throughout the outer territories. But these are not random attacks. They are coordinated operations designed to gather specific resources and test specific responses. The king paused. This intelligence comes from human sources who have been tracking Kethmori movements for months. Impossible, the Zephyrian snapped. Our combined intelligence services would have detected such patterns, would they? When did any of our services last visit the human frontier? When did we last ask humans what they had observed? Zephyros let that sink in. We have been so certain of our superiority that we ignored the people actually fighting this war. He activated another display. In the past 6 months, humans have engaged Kethmori forces 47 times. They have lost 38 of those engagements. But they have learned something from each defeat. And in the last few battles, they have begun to win. Now he had their attention. Victory against the Kethmori, even small ones, was almost unheard of. How? The question came from the Aquatic Council representative, speaking through a translation device. Because humans do not fight the way we do. They do not rely on overwhelming technological superiority. They study their enemies. They adapt. They exploit weaknesses that others consider impossible to find. The king gestured again, and Marcus Chun walked into the chamber. The reaction was immediate. Several representatives activated defensive systems. Others recoiled as if something unpleasant had entered their space. Humans were rarely seen in the Galactic Council chambers, and never as anything other than petitioners begging for aid. But Marcus walked like he belonged there. He wore simple human clothing, dark pants, a white shirt, a jacket that showed his military bearing. His hair was neat, his face clean, but the scars remained. He looked exactly like what he was, a professional soldier who had seen real combat. "Honored delegates," Marcus said in perfect galactic standard. "My name is Marcus Chen. I would like to tell you how to kill a Kethmori bioship." The chamber fell silent. "Impossible," the Zephyrian whispered. "Bioships regenerate faster than any weapon can damage them." "That is what everyone believes," Marcus agreed. "But belief and fact are different things. Would you like to see the data?" What followed was the most extraordinary presentation the Galactic Council had ever heard. Marcus laid out biological weaknesses in Kethmori ships that their best scientists had never suspected. He showed tactical approaches that turned their greatest strengths into vulnerabilities. He explained how their regeneration could be overloaded, how their nervous systems could be disrupted, how their psychological warfare could be turned against them. "You obtained this information how?" the Melody representative asked, her song now respectfully curious. "By being captured and studying them from the inside. By talking to other survivors. By treating them as an enemy to be understood, rather than a force to be feared. And you are willing to share this intelligence freely?" Marcus looked at King Zephyros, who nodded slightly. "Yes, with conditions." "Ah," the stone being rumbled. "Now, we come to the true purpose. What do humans want in return? Recognition as a full galactic species. Membership in the Council. And the right to establish rescue and response operations in all sectors affected by Kethmori raids." "Impossible," several voices said at once. "You lack the technological sophistication," the Zephyrian argued. "You have no colonial holdings beyond your own system," added the Aquatic representative. "You have never contributed to galactic civilization," finished the Melody. Marcus listened to all of this without expression. When they finished, he said simply, 3 weeks ago, Princess Luray was a prisoner on a Kethmori ship, along with children from 12 different species. Today, they are all home with their families. That contribution enough? One rescue mission does not qualify a species for council membership, the Zephyrian insisted. Then let me tell you about the others. Marcus activated a new display. In the past 6 months, human forces have rescued 437 prisoners from Kethmori raids. Citizens of 19 different species, including some of yours. We did it with crude ships and primitive weapons and no support from anyone. The numbers hung in the air like an accusation. Every species represented in the chamber had lost people to Kethmori raids. All had written them off as dead. But humans had been getting them back. Why? The question came from unexpected source. The eldest representative, an ancient being whose species had been among the council's founders. Why risk so much for strangers? Marcus thought about that for a moment. Because someone has to. And because we have learned that the things others call impossible are usually just things no one has tried the right way yet. The chamber was quiet for a long time. Finally, the elder spoke again. What do you propose? A joint task force. Human intelligence gathering combined with council technology and resources. We find their staging areas. We map their real capabilities. And we end this threat permanently, instead of just defending against it. And if we refuse? Marcus shrugged. Then humans will continue fighting them alone. We will win some and lose some. Eventually, we will learn enough to beat them consistently. But it will take longer, and more people will die while we figure it out. There was something in his tone that made everyone listen more carefully. Not a threat exactly, but a statement of fact that carried uncomfortable implications. The Zephyrian ambassador pulsed with frustrated energy. You speak as if defeat is impossible. For humans? It is. Marcus's smile was cold. We are too stubborn to quit, and too adaptable to stay beaten. The Kethmori think they know what humans are capable of. They are about to learn how wrong they are. King Zephyros stood again. The choice is simple. We can continue to fight separately and achieve partial victories while suffering continuous losses. Or we can work together and end this threat in our lifetime. And if humans prove unreliable allies? Someone asked. The king thought of his daughter, alive because a human had refused to leave anyone behind. He thought of Marcus, who had sacrificed himself for strangers and called it logical. Honored delegates. I have spent 3 decades building alliances with species who share our values and our sophistication. Those alliances have failed to stop the Kethmori threat. In 3 weeks, I have learned more about effective warfare from one human than I learned in 30 years of council military committees. He paused, his crystal body blazing with conviction. The humans are not asking to be our equals because they match our technology. They are asking because they have proven something more important. They get results. The vote was closer than expected. Many species abstained, waiting to see how the wind would blow. But when the count was finished, humanity had been granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council, contingent on the success of the Joint Task Force. As the chamber emptied, Marcus approached King Zephyros. "Thank you," the human said simply. "Thank you for bringing my daughter home. That was the easy part." Marcus looked out at the representatives filing away, many of them still grumbling about the decision. "Now we have to prove we deserve their trust. Can you do it?" Marcus's gray eyes were steady. "Your Majesty, the Kethmori have been the galaxy's nightmare for 3 centuries. They think they are the apex predators of the universe." He smiled, and there was something in it that made the king think of hunting cats and winter storms. They have never met humans who are properly motivated. That is about to change. As they walked from the chamber together,